And now we go back to the story on the fuel tax, where we spoke about the development in that regard. The federal government suspending proposed 15% import duty on PMS diesel. Right now, we're joined by our guest, Femi Onakanren, to help us make sense of this development. Thank you so much for joining us. Femi Onakanren, can you confirm you can hear me, please?
I can hear you.
All right, thanks for joining us. So I want to start by asking, now the federal government seems to have bowed to pressure, but have we only postponed the policy, or do we feel like this policy is gone for good?
I think it's important to really isolate what the issues are here, so that we can understand the mind of the federal government, especially in terms of fiscal policy management. So the proposed import tax tariff, it's actually not it's not supposed to be a big issue for the country, because it's actually a popular position that most economies have. There's import tax on PMS across the world. But part of the issues that we have are a couple of pertinent positions. Number one, the adequacy of local supply to meet up with the demand that we have. If that shortfall is there and importers can lean on the tariff as an issue, there will risk a rise in the cost of fuel, which of course translates to higher inflation and all such. At the same time, we're moving towards a period in our national history that every cycle, every year, November, December, January is actually a heavy period in terms of consumption, especially PMS. And periodically in the past, we've had exposures to long lines of queues and poor scarcity and hoarding. I think also that the federal government is quite cognizant of this, and they are taking a proactive step towards ensuring that that does not happen during this period. The country has achieved some relative stability on several fronts, and anything that would upset the cart should be diligently monitored and curtailed before it goes out of bounds. So I think that's part of the reason that is going. Will we have tariff imposition at some point in the future? I would expect so. It is one of the exposures that we have to be willing to accommodate, especially in support of local capacity. But since our local capacity has not met up with the local demand, we will actually need to suspend it for a while and just see how we can pull through until the next cycle.
So what measures should the Nigerian Midstream and the Downstream Petroleum regulatory authorities be putting in place to prevent hoarding and price hikes despite the suspension?
One of the things that we need to remember is that accountability is actually not just a social experiment, it's a social obligation. So everyone needs to, it's not just the NMDPR that's involved, all citizens also need to be involved. Whatever solutions in terms of technology solutions for monitoring, boots on the ground for monitoring and reporting, we would have to put that in place. But Nigerians, by and large, if there is a free flow and there's no constriction or a position that mischief makers can leverage, such as this import position, I think that we should not have any issue during the Yuletide period. And all that is required is adequacy of supply, such that when the demand comes in, the supply chain is also unfiltered and flowing freely.
All right. How does the government plan to support the local refineries in the absence of the import duty?
The local refineries already received a lot of support from the federal government across different fronts in terms of policy supports and even some financing obligations that caveats with arrangements with local financing partners. But what we're looking at is the duty helps in terms of promoting action towards local demand. People who produce locally can actually meet up with the demand rather than competing with imported products. This situation, it's a bit of a balancing act, but I think the government and the sector is moving in the right direction. As more local refineries ramp up their capacity and they improve what we can do, we will see that a number of these things, our dependence on importation will gradually reduce, and then we can now support the production, have a more competitive local market, and reduce exposure to foreign import variances.
So let's take our focus to briefly to the Senate's approval of the president's request to borrow 1.15 trillion naira in November. How is that justified, especially after the president has pledged that there will be no more borrowing?
Okay, so Nigeria has a funny relationship with our understanding of debt utility, and debt management. The concern should actually be more on debt utility and monitoring the accountability process attached to it. Requesting for additional debt, like the presidency has stated, is just to meet the deficit position. Now, if you recall what the budget was, we had a budget of about 49.74 trillion naira, if I'm correct, and about 28 or 30% of that budget was actually earmarked as a deficit position that our revenue inflow would not be able to cover. So the current request to meet up deficit positions are things that really are within budgetary ambits. There's enough ambit for us to accommodate it. It is not really so much as an issue for us or something to panic about. And the exposure also is not so grievous, considering we have about 13 trillion in deficit positioning already, and we're recording for 1.15 trillion. I think that is still a breathing space, in the position. But we need to service our deficit positions. We need to meet some obligations that are tied to this position, and our revenue are still not matched it. I mean, despite the increase in production of oil and increase in our export abilities and production abilities, manufacturing across different sectors. So I do not think it's something to worry about. It does not create an exposure, as it were, to the economy, and the matter should not be politicized. If there should be any concern, it should be regarding the utility of the loan that has been approved, and we just stay on course and see how it is utilized, such that the managers of the economy are not constrained by having to listen to all kinds of noises across the way in the course of discharging their duty. And by the way, we should also realize that as we're rejoicing over the celebration, for some people that, the import duty has been reduced, part of the reason that the import duty was being proposed was to show off our revenue positions. So if we're suspending that position, right, we also need to look at those shortfalls. How are we going to make up for the funds? Because the national obligations are not going to fall away, despite our constraints. So I do not see it as an issue. I think that the concern should be the proper management and accountability and structures in place for these things.
All right, Economist Femi Onakanren, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this.